first of
Well,
all.
let's hear it for
Nanette. Thank you, Nanette.
Did anyone come to the lease one that she gave?
I know of not enough.
No, here she gave one about the lease like 3 months ago. Anybody remember that?
It's been a while ago.
You came? It was awesome. Like I still have people calling me and telling me like, when's Nanette coming back?
So the goal of this is just to answer questions, and I'll answer all your questions. So if anybody has a question, we're going to. Time there'll be things that will be a one-off. So if there's a one-off, all contracts are a little bit different. None of them are the same. So every property is different. You're going to have every contract you're going to have is going to be a little bit different. So if anybody has any questions that are like one-offs or instances. No. Okay. I was looking
Or
at the
flow
little
chart.
steps. The steps.
You went back?
The flow chart.
Sorry. Yeah. Real estate office from headquarters, basically. If you have buyer, these are the steps that are going to happen. If you have the seller, these are the steps that are going to happen. Contract is the most important thing and your most important job, but really the most important job and how you get paid is right here. So you can have the perfect contract, but if it doesn't close, then you're not going to get paid. So obviously, working the contract is a big part of it, but obviously there are a lot of other steps to make sure that you do after you write your contract. Our presentation is online on the back office. If anybody wants to download it, you can. So what we're going over is obviously there. When we're doing the sales contracts, this is really important. Whether you have the buyer or the seller, this is attached to all of our Miami-Dade contracts and state of Florida contracts. We're not lawyers. Is anybody in here a lawyer, first of all? That's really good. Okay, good for that. Just kidding. So this is a very important thing. I'll tell you why it comes up. This, to me, this is more important right here, either on a lease or a contract, to make sure we have so many people understand it. So this can come back to haunt you if you're ever in a situation. Is really important to come back on leases and on contracts. This is really important to make sure. If they make sure two sellers, I always put under it the extra line and add that. So you'll see on the form, on Form Simplicity, that there's a space. So make sure
Is there one for lease and one for contract?
you can use this. It's downloaded.
Because it
it's
says
the
at
same
the
form.
bottom under with the line for the signature, it says
Yeah, you can add that on there. You can just strike and add that on there. But it's the same thing. They should seek an attorney. So even though you're not an attorney, so don't go there. Make sure that you look at the listing agent. If you have the buyer, and if you are the things that are important on the listing agreement, obviously the folio number. We've had situations property, not on your property. Very, very important. So always check a house down the street. So always make sure that you go to the folio number is the correct one. The property address is correct. The one-year contract for the seller. If it is an LLC, we can check you can go to sunbiz.org and check that. People as part of the LLC. So I had to people.
Is
That
the official signer on Sunday?
yes, it does. It has a which is what I did in my case. I made sure that they did an affidavit, and the title agency can do that. They do ability and the legal authority to sign on behalf of this LLC. It's very important because when you come down to closing day, for the people said, sure, we're signing off on it, we're selling it, and one person goes, I'm not selling it, and you're already at the closing table and one person objects and they're not selling it. Happens too in Miami sometimes with husband and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, brothers, sisters, properties that's inherited. Need to make sure that you have that affidavit that says, I am the person, the official person that can sign on behalf of this contract.
And if there's an
May I ask you a
issue,
question?
you want that conversation to happen now that you're listing it, not when you have an
Yes.
accepted offer, not when you're in contract,
Right.
not when you're closing.
Yep.
May I ask you a question? Is
Sure.
it the responsibility of a closing?
If you're a seller or if yeah,
But
you need to find
It's an offer. Go to Sunbiz and find. Make sure you get an affidavit. It is my responsibility as a buyer.
first thing, the contract. Ultimately, failed to do it, you're at the closing date, they don't have the approval for the condo association. The steps with your client that those things are done. I
What's
think
it saying? The road. I gotta do the job for both of us.
yeah, ultimately,
In the offer?
In the addendum? You name it.
Yep.
MLS listing
Yep.
and
the listing agreement, I don't know why it's doing that, but it's on there. Number, it's not 2%. Situation. Agreement. So always
MLS listing, the broker.
On there, the client should know. I get paid for.
they're gonna see
example
it
or-
in
or
the
when
For me, full disclosure. Oh, you never told me.
And while we're talking, sure that you verify with the other. You want to make sure you get 3%. To that other agent to verify that, just to make sure there's no mistake. The commission, you want to make party person to say down to the wire, and you're only getting 2%.
A situation where, actually a couple of times,
So the day the contract is written too, right?
Yeah.
That's why you attach a listing, because then
Right.
it's.
Contract and everything, that's the date on it.
Correct.
Yeah, so some hot property or something, they lowered the commission on this. Said, 3% hopefully.
That's why.
At any time something can happen, it can be
Yeah.
contested, however, you're
You can change your commission at any time.
right.
The offer, that's
Based
why I
on
attach.
But before you change the commission, you need
Getting anything, then you might convince yourself. Like you want some sellers. On there, add that on too with your contract as well, so put that in there. And also you have to go back and make an addendum to your listing agreement with Bobby that there's that commission's in there in case there's ever an instance where the seller wouldn't want to pay it. We have it in writing. You edit your simplicity for edits. Search price. This is just telling us the same thing. Make sure you have the property was 500. Somebody I can't even tell you how many times I'm looking at listings and you go straight to the tax roll to verify and it'll say it's a studio. It's so always the tax roll is what is as it is studio. So always remember, always check your number. Exactly. So, actual, if they have redone a room footage saying close the garage, they did it legally, then the Dade County, if they pulled the permits, will actually put that extra square footage on there that they renovated the garage, and it's a legal renovation, which is the other thing we fall into. To just show this is supposed to is it to contact the HOA. If the application has to be done by within a few days then they can stand with that 30 days. Once a month, and you just missed their monthly meeting yesterday. So you gotta wait till a whole other 30 days come around.
And ordering the homeowners association documents, yes?
Yeah, that's different.
Which is
You can, $100, $150, whatever they are. So it is the seller's responsibility. So that is the law. It's your responsibility. The seller doesn't have anything to do with that. The documents are. Most of them, yes, they are on. A domicile, and you can find those. So if they're there, they're there. It said no dogs were allowed, now they allow dogs. Change. So it's up to
can't put that in the agent remarks that
when they're electronic.
title to be at such and such, because we'll bust them for it and issue the buyer's choice, but the seller is already kind of
Florida, you can
I've
why I'm
only,
here this
I-
negotiable. Like if I just bought a foreclosure from this LLC. Right on there in the remarks, it says seller has says they have no idea about it, they have no documents, they have nothing. But the condo docs are $150, will you give me a credit for the $150? I'll go to the association.
Upload it to the MLS.
I was just- Before, it's our job to eliminate all the obstacles that can come up in a deal. Bobby is condo application, or at least the link to the condo application. Why? Because I don't want him as the buyer's agent to say, Memo, you never sent me that. I said, no problem.
Point
What?
on it. If you put a little disclaimer on it, say these are the ones I have, but they may not be uplisted. Get the most current copy. So that's one of the things.
That, listen, deals are Granny and dog inside of there. Listen, it says it on the bottom line is this, it's our job. It's our job. Do fall apart when you really research.
The day of the delivery?
Yeah. You send it to them and say, did you give these
Yep.
to your owner? And or anybody, always do it in writing, because I look at the way my contracts are is what the guy who taught me contracts. As proof,
A
to
timeline.
show that I did my job. Get them to, if I'm in a contract with Memo and I say, hey Memo, they're on. You're, either you as the agent for your buyer, or have the buyer sign that you did receive. Right.
Guess what? You already disclosed there is an issue with this building. What? That they don't accept pets.
Right.
That they don't allow parties after 7 p.m. The offer is made. You know what I'm saying? But the other part is that it is your job to send out that
And it's
email.
part of the 10-day inspection. Which this came up. It's your job to them right there, so you find out what. Find out how old the roof is if they don't know that. Might have to update it if something has happened. For you to know what's on that seller's disclosure when you do your listing agreement. Single check mark on that seller's disclosure can an agent fill in. simplicity, it's on our documents in our back office with the seller's
Doesn't have
disclosure.
value.
An addendum page to the seller's agreement.
The effective date is and the FAQ she used.
Not effective dates. The
For example, it says in
two different things. The condo right. Condos. It's a different form you're talking about. The condo rider?
yeah. In the box, that become part of the.
Disclosure right there.
And it becomes part of the.
The buyers, you're right, can
Yeah.
sign.
Get an
It wouldn't make
effective
sense for
date.
you to send everything.
Yeah, no, I
It
know.
wouldn't make sense. Right, so if
You need, or you should follow the guidelines too under your and objected to before for some reason if they just can't. All documents, condo documents, seller's disclosure. The inspection period, it's gone.
They said nobody ever reported. Should we issue a letter that
they can resolve it. Yeah.
If, I'll tell you why, if it doesn't come up under a title search that there's either a lien on the you can ask too. In minutes, a lot of people won't give pending litigation, if there's some pending litigation behind South towers are messed up. It comes up under the title search for
So it's just like under
no, but in my case, I represent the buyer.
well,
Which is
So-
good for you.
So, well,
get a letter water pressure, heat, especially if we have these buildings have. Yeah.
Water pressure.
And we give them 60
There's-
days, if it's not take 6. And then we put the-
Association, as my own experience, it happens. Fix it with a budget.
That's what I'm saying.
Shiraz
I
is
think
between 7 and 9 a.m. at Shiraz the water pressure's gone because everybody's taking a shower in
Oh
all the
my God.
apartments.
That's
Between it's an issue. Anybody want to buy that condo? It's not an issue yet. There's no lien. So, contact the HOA. So you know that every time with your buyer, did you do it today? Did you do it? Because legally on our contract, when we hold you up in your closing, if they're not approved and you don't have your approval letter, it can hold up your closing time, get a credit for closing. It's going to take them $10,000 to fix that. Your apartment to that, and you can bring it out. You can have them give that amount of information. So if you're in a condo on a Saturday, not on Sunday. So try to manipulate when they plan to move in for that. Only on Wednesdays for memo.
And then the other thing that happens is, I don't want to say this. Comes in from Chicago, our mom comes in from Puerto Rico, and we have a second cousin twice removed that comes all the way from Del Rey. And so what happens when you don't close on Friday because something happened and you don't close? And this
Everybody's
woman came in
clients
from
are
Puerto
messed
Rico, now she's got to stay in a hotel.
Yeah.
Your client is mad.
But she's in
When
the
you don't
bed
close
with
on
you.
a Wednesday, guess what? You close on a Thursday. You don't close on a Thursday, you close on a Friday.
So take that in consideration. You know, when we look to see, oh, how long is it on a Sunday, you can't do a closing on a Sunday. So think about it and do it on a Monday. Things in Dade County usually don't get. Get done on Monday and everything. Good idea. So, and especially for the there's a house association or a condo association. Interviews for the applications. I have a lot of. They only have personal interviews. They want to know who's living in that building, and they want. Thursday somewhere. I'll have my people flying from wherever, Venezuela, Brazil, or something on the day before to do that and see how fast they can get a signature for that. lot of our associations down here now because of Airbnb, because of a lot of legal issues with who's in the property and the issues that we now have, the 1 year only lease. That person, they send their aunt or their grandma or their cousin that's for the interview. They don't allow that stuff. So anyway, check on that and make sure you set all that up right. All right, moving on. Any questions so far? That was really seller responsibilities. The buyer, this is basically talking about if you have a buyer, just pre-qualifying your buyer. These are all things that can hold you up on your contract because the person didn't do the approval, they didn't contact their lender in time, or they changed lenders in the process of, getting different lenders. Everybody knows the difference between a pre-approval letter and an under.
It's fine, oh, they're good people.
Toilet paper.
It's nothing. It's
Possible standing in
It's
which you
barely
are.
worth the paper.
No, they usually, what they
Exactly.
ask you is how much money do you make, how much money do you have saved, and do you have good credit?
For him to work, but he is not a permanent.
Always
But they-
ask for a DU approval.
Exactly, and that's where I was going with that. So if you have the DUs for the underwriter, it means they're good to go. They can buy your property. So you want to make sure if you have the buyer, and at the same time, if you have the seller, you want to see that. You want to see that when with the contract.
And
When-
another really good tip is that if you're representing the seller, and they send you an offer, and the offer is coming with a pre-qualification, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't call that bank and call that mortgage loan officer and say, great, hi, how are you? Listen, how deep did you dive? How much do you know? Because when you make that phone call, when you make that contact, it'll come up later on, but it's a good idea because then that person will tell you, oh, no, I never even.
You fill out an application and you receive a pre-approval right
Oh,
immediately.
yeah. Go to Home
Yeah,
Depot, you'll.
That brings up a really good point, but again, if you're getting a pre-qualification letter from an institution you've never heard of, you probably should call them. And if it's coming from Credit Karma, I would not accept that as a
Just
pre-qualification.
like on a reference. Same thing, call the lender and say, did you give this letter? I'm on the other side of it, what have you done so far, and this or that. They're usually pretty open about it if it's a lender that. So just make sure you get your ducks in a row there, okay? Mortgage tips, we're not gonna go over that. Searching for a property, everyone here knows how to search for a property, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Search not for sale if I search for rent property on MLS, because usually you put active in the line when you search a property. What do you put to search only that is for rent?
It's a
You do
different
rental.
Rental search.
Rental,
So
number
rental.
6,
Yeah.
rental.
A rental?
Yeah, it's just
I'm
rental.
sorry,
If
this
you
one,
do, if they're
number 6, I
close
think,
rentals, if
Because
you're
I
looking
use
for
a
close,
different
you
program
just check
to do it
rented.
right now.
Yeah, if you want to check the price.
Residential rentals, that's what it's like.
Okay, so this is just making offers, same thing, we went over that. We're gonna go right to the as-is contract. So everybody is familiar with the as-is and why to use the as-is. As-is is not the only contract that we use in Florida. You have your regular contract that's not as-is, and you have your contract that's, that is as-is. As-is is with the right to inspect the property, and you can negotiate more with this product, this contract. That's why I tend to use just this contract. But other agencies in Miami use the old contract, what I call the old one, not the as-is. So you'll see the contract, pay strict attention. If somebody sends you a because some companies in town, some other brokers, have their attorneys to write their own contracts, and they are written toward their sales or their owners. So you need to be very careful of that. So make sure if it's not an as-is, the as-is is pretty straightforward. It's in my opinion the best one to negotiate with. It's the best one that you can manipulate for flexibility for either a buyer or a seller. So I use it with both my buyer sellers. But if you do get the other one, which I think Kai's or somebody else uses the other one, and their lawyer wrote theirs, and it's very pro. They have one for their sales agents, and they have one for their buyer's agents, but they're not an as-is contract. So be very careful about those contracts and make sure you read them carefully. With this one, just same thing, we're just briefly going to go over, make sure you have the property address correct. Don't be lazy and not put in the legal description. Go ahead and write it in there. When you send this information to the title office, this is what they work off of directly. So if you put in this information, like the folio, like we talked about, like the legal description things, that can cause a problem when you go to closing, because it may be different. And it may, especially if there's a loan and this gets sent to, what happens, you send it to the title company turns around and sends it to the lender. If the lender gets the misinformation, it just starts everything in the wrong direction and the wrong process and can really slow you down.
There are some properties that they have two folios.
That's if there's two lots that have been bought a house here and then they bought a house here, they joined the property and bought two, there's two folios. You can do either have the title company. Most lenders will not loan to two folios. They will not. They make you join them. It takes an average of 45 to 65 days to get a property in Miami-Dade joined. It's a big process. They send out the surveyors, the county has to do all this stuff. You have to pay fees. The sellers have to pay all these fees to join those folios. So, but they generally, if you have land, one of them is usually a house that's on the folio, and that's what the property value is on. Then it might be a blank lot or just a swimming pool or a tennis court on it. So some associations will not allow sitting on here. He wanted to sell the whole thing to one person and join the folios. Our condominium documents, or our association documents, said you cannot join folios. They don't want people in our neighborhood to build gigantic into that. So if you do find a situation where there's two folios, I would look at the process. There's forms online to join them. I went through that last year where they bought a property that okay, so we go down through here. Anybody have questions on this first page? This is probably the most important page, I think, of the whole contract. So obviously you have the buyer, the seller, and all that legal information on here. If there's personal property included in this purchase, it goes right here. So that's things not listed up here. Okay, so you don't need to put in the dishwasher. It's already there. You don't need to put in the range. You don't need to put in all that stuff. Anything that's not up here, that's here, you can problem?
No, but it says though, owned by the property of the owner. It says in the pre-written text. Rods, for example, window treatment, whatever. But there's nothing. What do you do?
No,
Describe
it's-
it or?
No, this is just an example of what could be there. So if that's
Well,
there, you
it's-
don't have to
it doesn't
list it.
say
If it's
as an
not there.
example.
Yeah, because
What the
previously
contract,
was-
what the contract says is only list things that are not within these two
Categories.
paragraphs.
Mhm.
So it says, if it's any of these, you don't
You
need
don't
to
have
list
to
it.
list
Yeah.
it.
Anything
No, I know.
else besides that, list it, that's
No,
all
I
it says.
But
know
if it's
that.
not there-
But if it's listed there in the
And it's
text,
not-
But then you don't have to list it, that's what
I
they say.
know, but it's not in the property.
Scratches or what?
Doesn't matter.
It's okay.
What
Yeah,
it's
because
saying
No,
is,
but
He's
But
not
you write
reading
it.
that
I said, no, right,
correctly.
it's
He's
just
not
a
reading
property.
it.
You're not-
Yeah,
you're
he's
not
not
reading
reading it
Yeah.
correctly.
read the paragraph
That's it.
on, read the paragraph on that.
Okay,
It says
personal
be-
property, unless excluded in paragraph 1 from other items in this term, so the following items which are owned by seller and existing, so it says unless, so it basically discredits that right there. Are included in the purchase, the range, the refrigerator, the dishwasher, disposal, ceiling fan, intercom, light fixtures, drapery rods, draperies, blinds, window treatment, smoke detectors, garage openers, security, and other access devices. So it says right here, all these things are considered personal property, but it says unless it's excluded.
Right.
So this means
Yeah, but
if it's
So the
if
excluded,
it's
next line
no, no,
says
but if it's
anything
excluded, you write it down.
yes.
Okay.
So if it's excluded, then you would put not there or something, I guess you put, refrigerator not there or something.
And I tried for like 2 days with the buyer. I said, don't worry, it's to cover us in case it's there. You know, it says it owned by the owner or whatever it says.
This is other personal property included in
Yeah.
this. If there's furniture, this is a tricky situation.
And there might be something else. I mean,
Yeah.
they might have a wine
A
fridge.
freezer. Or
They
wine
might have a double
refrigerator.
freezer. They
Yeah,
might have,
yeah, furniture.
The
They
question
might have-
was not
TV
the
or
extra
something.
stuff, is that what's in the text that's
Yeah.
printed, and if it's not there.
then you don't have to say
He
anything.
wants to say, it's scratch.
I understand.
They wanted to scrap it. I said, it's our advantage to say it. you know, to
Patio
leave it there.
furniture, golf
You don't
cart.
have to say anything,
Yeah.
but if you want to, you can, but you don't have to say
But let
anything.
me tell you one thing, if it's included in the sale price, it's included in the sale price. If somebody is listing their property separately and wanna sell it separately, it should not be a part of your contract, and this is basically
Yeah.
what I'm telling you. That's when it's listed,
You don't-
so either included or not included, that's
Either
the way I look
gift
at
it
it.
or let it go.
Exactly. If they wanna sell it, it's off title, it's off of the title office, it's off the sale.
Personal
So if they wanna go
property
back and
versus
buy
real
it from
property.
them, or buy it, what's that?
I said that's personal
There's two-
property
there's-
versus real property.
Yeah, there's
Exactly.
2 reasons for it. First of all, because the bank is not taking the risk on a loan based on anything that you have inside the property.
Right.
So in other words, if you
I'll
have
give you a loan
Murano
for the
glass,
furniture.
Murano glass, vintage
A banana
furniture,
tape
whatever it
to
might
it.
be, whatever it might be, Chippendale, whatever it might be, whatever it is, the loan is not based on that value. So
Right.
then the bank is gonna say, we're gonna decrease the loan based on this, and then you're screwed at the end of the closing, first of all. Second of all, anything that's like that, any furniture, that golf cart you mentioned, all that stuff, that's taxable. Because that's a separate sale. So you basically have to get 2 attorneys to figure out a contract, and they're gonna have to write a contract
Right, so it's not
separate.
real property and personal property,
But
it's two separate
that's not
things.
true what you just said, one part of it as far as the property not appraising, because a mortgage is only an amount of money that a bank will lend you to buy a property. That doesn't mean that you don't have to pay the difference between
No,
the
that's
appraised
exactly what I'm
value and
saying.
sale.
What I'm saying is that it will not, okay, if you have a property that's worth $500,000, and there's $100,000 worth of furniture,
It's not gonna
no
appraise for the
bank, no bank is gonna
$100,000
give you a loan for
Yeah, you're saying the
600.
same thing.
That's true.
The bank is only gonna give you the loan for what the property is, because you know what you could do? You can remove all the furniture, and now that just went down $100,000.
There's no more cash.
You shouldn't know.
It's a pain.
You
So
should
it's
never do
like-
it.
Pain in
You
the
should
ass.
never do an addendum,
Yeah.
he said you can do an addendum for
No.
the furniture?
Nope.
No.
It's
No.
illegal.
No, no,
If
no,
they
you
have
don't
a-
put it there.
We don't sell
Then
that.
It's a big
Separately.
problem.
Then they-
Only between seller and buyer.
Nope.
No,
it's illegal.
because that
It
addendum
is
is a legal part of the
Stop.
contract.
It is illegal. And
Yeah.
we are not authorized to sell that.
Personal property versus
don't want
real
that.
property.
Juan,
It'll
and
cause
never
a big
do that.
problem.
It is illegal. You can lose your license.
Yeah, it'll
What you do
cause
is
a
you
big
get 2
problem.
attorneys to write a separate
You
contract.
say, meet him
Yeah.
tomorrow night to
And
sell it
say,
to
you are not authorized to sell beds. You are not that authorized to sell furniture. You are not authorized to sell a boat. You're not, and none of that. None of that.
No
extra
golf
property.
cart, no.
What comes
No, no.
down to it, if there's a lender involved or an attorney or a title company, and
It's
that
fraud.
addendum has to be, every single addendum has to be in our package,
Yeah.
you can't separate that from the package, so that would have to go to the
Sure.
lender, and the lender won't go with that.
If
So
the
they
lender
won't do it.
finds out that
Yeah.
there was a value of 600 based on the furniture,
And the IRS
you're
don't
basically
like it
fraud.
either. The IRS is the biggest thing they won't like.
You don't wanna get involved
I
in
mean, you
that.
just don't wanna go there because of tax purposes, 'cause
No, no,
it'll
no.
be.
No,
it's
no,
a
especially
no-brainer.
because you're the one that did a fraudulent contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
anyway,
the
it's-
problem. That's the
You
issue.
really shouldn't do that at all. One thing I wanna point out, if you list a house and they have grandma's chandelier and they want grandma's chandelier out of it, don't put it in your photos. This is a personal opinion. Don't put it in your photos. Take it down. When I do my listing agreements, I'll walk around and I say, is there anything in this house that's you want to take with you, that's attached to the walls, it's not furniture, that
Take
you
it.
want to take with you? If that front porch light came from the Biltmore Hotel and you want to take that, if you have a 5-star gas stove that you love and you want to take that, remove it from the house before you do your pictures, before they see it. My personal experience is, if you put that in your listing, it says these items don't convey, somebody will become fixated on that chandelier, and they will fight to tooth
Yeah.
and nail to get grandma's chandelier
Yeah.
that you don't want to take or something. This is my personal opinion
no,
on
you're
it.
absolutely right.
If it's a cheap light or something, and they say, oh, they want to take this light's $100 or something, you might end up having to give them a credit at closing unless you put it in there that it's not going to convey. But I can tell from my personal experience, people become fixated when you said, you can't have this.
Yeah.
They just go crazy
Their
about it
mind
and
is
say,
done.
but I'm buying the kitchen because of that stove. I'm buying that. get a $200, $300 stove and put in there and take your $10,000 stove with you or something. I mean, unless it's a, you know, if you're gonna leave it, you leave it. But
And
if
on
you're
the
gonna
other
take
side
it-
of that one, if I can just interject on the other side,
Yeah.
on the opposite side of that spectrum, especially when you're going to a nice, completely redone,
Yeah.
beautiful, reno apartment, take picture of the appliances, take pictures of the manufacturing part numbers,
To make
take
sure it's not
picture-
ripped out.
because it has
It'll
happened to
disappear.
you, it's happened to me,
It'll
that you do
disappear.
the walkthrough and you're going,
not the same
this
stuff.
was a Wolf
It was a
range,
silver and white.
and now it's a General Electric.
Yeah.
No, because, you know, they're so pretty.
So that's why I say get rid of the stuff, get it out of there. If they wanna take it that badly, you know, I would just replace it.
There I would write an
People
addendum.
become-
There I would write an addendum. Let it be known that the items are, and I would write the manufacturer part, like if it was something, especially if those rehab ones, where they're doing, the people are doing it for a living, they do this. They put really nice, beautiful
It's a bait and
fixtures,
switch.
and then they
It's
space
just
them
not
out
right.
with like, you know, a cheap,
Yeah.
So this is where you put that right here. And actually too, to follow up with this, it should go on your listing agreement. On your listing agreement, it says items included in your property, items not included, grandma's chandelier, you know, the Biltmore porch light, the 5-star gas range, not included. Put it on your listing agreement too. This came back to haunt one of my clients who sold this house, and they did become fixated on some Venetian orange thing. The lady became fixated on it, and they had to pay like, they told her, they had a sale list of items they're selling, and that was listed right in the house, and she grabbed that. And they bought it for like $200. They bought it somewhere cheap in an antique store, but they had it listed for sale for $1,500. The lady got $1,500 at closing for that light that they said they wanted to take, or they were selling it. But anyway, it can come back to haunt you. So if there's something that's not going to be there, just take it out. And it listed here and listed on your listing agreement. Purchase price here. So everybody knows you have the choice right here with your deposit. It can either be left, and this is where we fill in London Foster or Title Now, whichever one you use. And we discussed why you should leave it here. It's safer with London Foster. We just have more control over it if you leave it in your own home office. It's like your own closet or your own backyard. You leave your money there, so you have more control over it. Bobby would control it if there's an issue or something, and he would be the final word on where it's going to go too. So if there's a dispute over the escrow. So it's safer until the day of closing, or the day, 2 days before to send it. It's better, safer, I think, to leave it in your own escrow. Not all companies have an escrow, but we do, and we're lucky to have one here. So anyway, London Foster here, our information, and if it's, some companies offer, I usually do the 3 days, because, you know, you never know with 3 days if they change their mind or not.
Yeah.
So I do 3 days usually with my first deposit. People, how many people here, what deposits do you put on a property? How much your first deposit? Usually, percentage
In the one that I just did was 250, I put 10,000.
So, really?
So I recommend.
Pay the
10%.
loan.
1,000 per
You pay the
100,000.
loan.
Just
because-
percentage wise, how much do you usually put down? If you
As the first deposit or the second deposit?
the first deposit, how much do you guys
5,000.
I put 20%.
20%?
On the first deposit?
No, yeah, but if you pay, if the financing is
It's like
FHA, or,
Because it's cash.
Well, I mean, it's usually just a percentage off the top of people's heads. If you offer, if you have a property, say, you know, this is use
How much is it? Like, how much percent?
$500,000, how much do you think in, you're the
10%.
buyer, you're the buyer's agent.
As the first
5,000.
deposit,
For a
within 3
buyer
days,
or for a-
$10,000.
If I-
$10,000
first.
Then
So,
then
the
40,000
rest
within
It
10
depends
days.
who it represents.
As much you do a deposit, it means you would like.
So
to buy.
everybody's all over the place. You get my point? Everybody has a
The
different
less,
thing.
the less
So,
it is.
if you're a seller,
As little as the seller would pay.
if you're a seller and you're a buyer, if you're a seller, if you really like the house, you want to buy the house, and you have a seller here, a buyer here, how much do you think is going to convince a seller to choose your offer over 5 other ones he might receive? So,
10%.
so at least.
Really?
At-
50,000.
To me,
I do that.
At least.
Generally.
Reasonable, 10%.
generally,
Yeah.
and that's usually a good figure for
Yeah.
most
If you
people.
put only $3,000 and
No.
you will not never negotiate
even
about
look at
good
it.
price.
Yeah.
Honestly,
No.
that's what I'm thinking
Yeah.
too. So in my
Yeah.
estimation, you know, you have to put something that's gonna make the person at least just know you're serious
Recall their
and
attention.
put it up front. And remember, it's going to London Foster, and you have your
We are
15
covered
days,
in
14
certain
days,
ways.
and everything to get rid of it and get it all back anyway. So anyway, always make sure that you put I usually use 10%. I usually don't put less than 10% on mine on the first deposit, but you know.
Do you write percentage or you write
No,
numbers?
no, I put the amount of money,
The amount.
whatever the offer is, I take 10% of that, and that's what it is, and gets the London Foster. Make sure you fill out all that information there too. An additional deposit, if there's a second deposit, then you put it here, 10 days. I usually put 10 days here, I do the 10 days, if not 10 days, I do it with my inspection period. If I have a 15-day inspection period, I usually do it one day off, or the same day as my inspection period. So you don't have all that money put in escrow before, if you find something wrong with the property, decide you don't want the
15
property.
days for inspection fee? No.
It
No,
depends on
she's
the
saying that
property.
she changes it to 10.
Yeah, I said if,
As soon as
this one says
possible.
10.
Yeah, everything
You do
depends
As
who
soon
the
as
property
possible,
is.
yeah.
Depends on the property. If I want the property, and I know there's 5 other offers on it, it is a hot property, it is a good price, boom, 7 days.
That's
7 days, I want the property, I want it. And I can get my inspector, we all know we have good inspectors, we all probably have
The
one.
next day.
The next day, I get my guy, I call him and I say, hey, I need you the next
The
day, I need you.
the idea of making the second deposit and the inspection match is not for you to leave it for the last day.
Mhm.
It's to match them with 10 days and to tell your buyer, my friend,
Ready.
let's go. This is the inspector, within 3 days it's done, by the 4th day they approve, guess what?
It's not
You just-
wasting anybody's
You just
time.
gave your buyer, you
Yeah.
just gave your buyer a 6-day window
Mhm.
to make that payment. Because
Right.
sometimes, not everybody has $150,000 in a checking account. So sometimes it takes a couple days to wire it or whatever. So you just gave me an opportunity. Never leave it for the last day. If
Never.
I'm
Because
saying,
you can
sign
lose the property.
contract, let's go to inspection.
Yeah, it's a good idea to do everything as soon as you can. Don't wait till the last moment, because we
No.
don't know what our weather's gonna be here for our inspection. We don't know what someone's calendar's gonna be. So try to tighten up everything, and that will make your seller very, very happy. They wanna sell this house. They don't wanna
Yeah.
sit on it. It's gonna be off the market for 15 days already. I mean, come on, 15 days.
And also, but I mean, like, looking for the other side, as the
Yeah.
buyer's agent, I want my buyer on it.
Right.
What happens to a buyer if you let them too loosey-goosey?
No.
They start talking to everybody.
Who's been in
And
a
then somebody says,
situation?
oh, there's another property in the
Yes,
building.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, but who's been in a situation before where you had an inspection, you gave them 15 days, and they wanted an additional 15 days to do an inspection?
face.
I mean, give me a break. Nobody wants to wait for 15 days.
You want
do
to
their
see him
inspection.
talk, not only hear him, right?
So, okay, so
I
moving
thought so.
on, remember down here, so we have the second deposit after the effective date, so we have 10 days after the effective date. Financing, if you have an 80-20, which most people have 80-20, or if you have an FHA, whatever, you put in that amount here, and then the balance to close will, it'll pop up, it should auto-populate. Check that number though, make sure it auto-populates correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to redo it.
Exactly, because sometimes
click it
people
couple
put it up
times
here,
or-
they'll put a dot and put the cents, and down here they won't, and then
Never.
it's like, give us
Yeah.
some weird number. So just check that number. A lot of people say, oh my God, that's wrong, but usually check your math, you know, and check where you put your period for the cents, or if you didn't put it in. So, time for acceptance, very, very important right here. It's generally, how many days do people have for acceptance on a contract? What do you guys think?
May I put
Usually
two?
approved.
May I put two all the time?
Exactly, so that's here.
Tomorrow at 5.
In the
So,
afternoon.
and that's a good idea, so you put the date, so whatever date it is, you put this, if you signed, if your buyer signed it today, which is what, the 10th, are we on the 10th? And then the 11th, so we put the 13th right here, so that Friday the 13th, you need them to sign
Oh
by
my
Friday
God.
the 13th.
Bang.
At 5
Oh
PM, and it's a good idea, put 5 PM on it, 5 PM. So Friday the 13th, 5 PM. And closing date, 30 days, everybody knows if you have cash, we can close within 30 days in Miami if you have cash, if you have the cash. That's when the proof of funds,
Can we do it less?
Yes. Yeah.
you can,
But it's.
you
it's
can, but it's
no.
not easy, depending on the property, depending on if you get an approval for a condo association,
Yeah.
it takes 30 days. So
Then
it
you're
depends on the
going to
property. If it's a single family house, you can probably do it if it's cash, if there's any liens on it, or if the city of Miami Beach is involved in it. I mean, it just depends on where the property is, if there's any liens, violations, permits, or anything like that, they can open. So, anyway, but yes, you can. 45 days usually on a loan. Mostly people 45 days, although Rocket Mortgage, the memo had one close, what, in 2 weeks? something crazy.
I did
It
one,
Depends on the client.
I
21
closed
days.
one in 2 weeks.
21 days.
2 weeks, awesome. She closed one in 2 weeks. So,
very
and this
good.
is depending on, you know, you're guiding your client though. This goes back if you have the buyer. Does he have his ducks in a row? Does he have his tax records? Does he have all that stuff? Are you keeping every day talking to that person by email or text or something to say, did you submit your documents? Did you submit your documents? If you have a buyer who's sitting on everything and they're not responding to their loan officer, it can be a big problem. So it's up to you to light a fire and get them moving and make sure they're going in the right way. And when you do your contract too, one of the things that Memo and I always do is we do a timeline. We send it to all the parties involved. We send it to the lender. We send it to the agent that we're working with, the co-agent. We send it to the title company. So everybody's on the same page. Just say executed date, first
Very
deposit
good.
due, second deposit due, financing due by this date, our closing date is here, our inspection period is here. Put everything in writing in black and white, copy everybody on it, and make sure everybody return receipt. Make sure everybody knows. And it
Better
could
to
be-
find out that somebody has an issue with one of the days that
just
you
say, hey,
calculated
I'm having a
today,
surgery, yeah.
and not the day
Not
before the
later.
Because if
closing.
somebody says, hey, I'm having a surgery that day or something, I
Yeah,
can't be
yeah,
there,
yeah.
that's my birthday, I can't be there, I can't do this, I can't do that, or whatever. I mean, for any reason, we all have
Much better.
these reasons come up. So you wanna put that in
Traveling
there and build it in there. Yeah, travel, plane tickets, etc., holidays. So anyway, make sure that everybody, checks their calendars. So, and remember what we said about closing dates, Memo likes Wednesdays.
Another thing that I would recommend on the closing day is I always say a closing day or before,
Yeah, on or before.
on or before.
Yeah, I
What do you
do.
mean? What?
Instead
You
of,
can
let's say
write
my
on or
closing
before.
day is January 18th.
You can put in
I
here,
will
you can
write-
write in here,
I will write
on
on or
or
before.
On or
before.
before,
You
Ah.
always write on
Can,
before.
can
For
I
two
do it
reasons.
right
For
now
two-
with for simplicity?
Yes,
you can.
Because,
You-
because
when
for
you go to
simplicity
the-
right now
when you go
you
to the sign-
automatically click on a
No,
calendar.
you can write it in. You
Because
can click on
usually
it.
it's not
Text.
understandable.
We can show you how to
You can
do
text.
that.
Yep.
When you send
The
to
reason
e-sign,
why, there's two reasons for it. One is that you wanna close earlier if you can, but two, you're basically subjecting both the seller and the buyer. Guys, listen, this is the worst case scenario, let's get serious. Let's everybody close up the dates. And then I said, 10 days is a good idea, but you don't have 10 days to do the inspection, you have 2 days to do the inspection.
Yeah,
Let's close this up, you know, and it's psychological, but it really does work.
yeah, your goal is to keep everything as tight as you can, and that control is the one issue. You're really driving the train for your buyers and sellers, and if somebody drops the ball, if you have an agent that's lazy on the other side, it's a pain, but it's your job to pick up the slack and move it along, move it along, move it
I
along.
had a broker that they always
So-
say, you don't get paid until the day after the check clears.
That's right. This came up yesterday on WhatsApp too, which I made an error. Somebody corrected me. So time and calendar days. Everybody knows that we're on calendar days, not business days for our contracts, correct? So all of our as-is contracts are calendar days, which means the only time that the business days come into effect if it ends up on a weekend, a Saturday or a Sunday, then you follow to the next Monday and it's 5 p.m. So you can read this, and this again is online, but this is important when you're talking about inspection periods, financing periods, deposit periods, everything. So if it's done after 5 o'clock, it falls into the next day. If it's done before 5 p.m., if somebody signs, then it's that day. So your inspection period, if it's 10 days, one of
No.
the days.
No, it's actually the opposite. Okay. If you make an offer
Mhm.
at 5:01, right, it's still, the offer was made on
That day.
Thursday,
Yes,
until midnight,
right.
okay? So if you make an offer and you have 3 days to pay, and it's a Thursday, then basically it goes from Thursday to Friday,
Friday to Saturday.
Friday to Saturday, and Saturday to
Monday.
Sunday.
Mhm. Unless it's a holiday.
Saturday to Sunday.
Mhm.
So because a Sunday is not a working day, that automatically gets translated as to Monday
Monday.
by 5 p.m. So in other words, if it lands on a day, it has to land on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If it lands on any day that is not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then it's automatically the very next day. If that Monday is a holiday, then it's the day after
The
that.
Tuesday.
That's the only thing.
Even for the offer?
Yes.
the-
You can make the offer up until 11:59 p.m. and that would only fall on Thursday. So when Nanette said was
If
that,
it's
oh,
on the
they-
Saturday, the day, the 2 days in a Saturday, it's Monday.
it's Monday, unless Monday's a holiday.
So,
Exactly. Monday's
asking
holiday, moves.
a question, if counter offer was accepted like Monday 7 p.m., should be effective date Monday?
Monday. Monday until midnight.
We are talking about the offer is presented but not accepted.
No,
Accepted the
right.
days, of course.
Oh, yeah, you can do it sooner, you just can't do it later. You can do it sooner.
But the bottom line, the bottom line is that none of these days matter, okay? Except for when we make an offer, we have 3 days to get it accepted, right? But what the real date that really matters to us is the effective date. So he just said, what if my effective date was Tuesday at 11:59? Is that Wednesday? No, it's Tuesday. So from Tuesday, you start counting. So from Tuesday to Wednesday would be 1 day. Wednesday to Thursday would be 2 days. Thursday to Friday would be 3 days. Now, if it was a 4th day and it fell on a Saturday, you can't work on a Saturday. That can't be the day that it expires. So even though you have 3 days to get accepted or 4 days to get accepted, it's really 6. Because you get until Monday.
If we put an offer 2 days, if I accept, but the person accepts it on the 3rd day, how do you modify it? Do you redo the contract
Do you
completely?
have a backup offer?
Do you?
That's better?
Do you?
That's when it becomes important.
She just gave
Yeah.
me the answer. Not important.
No, but do you
It's not
resign
important.
the whole contract?
No. The effective date is the important date. She
Yeah.
just gave you the answer.
It's-
If you have a better offer, then goodbye. You
No,
give-
yeah, if you have a better offer.
But if you don't, then it doesn't matter. The day that it got executed is the effective date.
Yeah, it
A
doesn't
contract can
matter.
be
It doesn't matter
expired.
when it's offered, it matters when the other person signs it, when it's a basic.
No, but if we had put a limit of 2 days in the offer.
It doesn't matter because the contract can be expired.
This is an
Yeah.
appointment.
Okay, let's say
And still be accepted.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
so
the
that
only,
day
the only
doesn't
reason
really-
you have the expiration date is so that if when he brings me one on the 3rd date, I can say to you,
Oh, okay.
oh wow.
So we don't have to modify the contract?
Nope.
For that day?
You won't have to. The only time you have to modify it is if one of the parties, there's 2 buyers, and if one of the parties signed on one date and the other one signed the other date, then the other one becomes effective
Yeah.
anyway, the second one, the second buyer. If
The
there's 2
reason why you
buyers,
have those 3 days protection is so that your offer
it's not
doesn't
just
stay floating
lingering,
for 2
lingering
weeks.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
lingering
okay.
out
Because what
there.
happens, you made me an offer, 2 days later, it expires. On the 3rd day, he comes to me and I go, I'm going with you, and you go, but Memo, I had an offer. Yeah, but it expired.
Expire, okay.
What
So
if you
that
had
must be-
5, yeah, and you
but-
had 5 offers, a multiple offer situation,
Okay.
you had 5 offers, that's the first one you received in your mind, I'm gonna take the one I received first, cause it's the right thing to do, not cause it's the one that's the most, for whatever reason you wanna
No,
look
but
at
you're
that one.
taking the seller position, I'm taking the buyer position. I write in my offer that I have, the offer is valid until the 12th,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, All the effective date become the 13th. Do we have to remodify that date?
No, because
It
now-
becomes,
now-
it becomes
That's
good.
the date,
becomes-
whoever
Everybody is
signs
assigned the
last.
last.
Yep.
Yeah, whoever
It's
signs
okay.
What
last.
happened in case the offer was accepted verbally, but the...
There's no verbal.
There's no.
We don't accept anything verbally,
Are you a
unless you have
realtor?
a writing,
Tan loco. You don't do anything in verbal.
no,
No,
unless you
just like
have it
this.
signed
It
and
means
it's
nothing.
dated, it's not
Verbal
effective.
means nothing. That's my point.
It's worth nothing.
My word is worth nothing in a court of law.
Remember, if you have to go in front of Judge Judy, that's what I always think, everybody knows Judge Judy. If you're in front of Judge Judy, I'm the TV judge, she always says, where's your proof, where's your proof, where's your proof? A phone call is not, a text is not, only in writing would it be effective. So that's the problem, it would be voided, basically, it wouldn't
No,
stand
because
up.
when you comment about the other offer, better offer, sometimes the real estate, your offer was accepted. Okay, so my buyer is going to be signed tomorrow, but in that night,
Yep.
he receives another offer.
Bye.
So
See you later.
Fine. As the
That's
listing
it.
agent's realtor, it is my job, my fiduciary contract is to my seller, and I'm gonna tell all 3 of you, yeah, you got an accepted offer, send me back your contracts. It means nothing.
Verbal
If my
offers.
seller doesn't sign it, all your contracts are opinions.
However, if you
So
don't have any
protect
other
yourself.
offers or anything is going on or anything like that, but if you do get another offer, that offer is not, you're not obligated with that offer until something is signed.
Yeah.
Until something is signed, you really don't have a contract. You don't have
It's
a
an
contract.
opinion. It's an opinion. An offer
So-
is nothing. It means nothing.
Yeah. Now, if you had if their counter offered is different. If there's a
Yeah.
counter offer, now you have a new date and it starts again. So if there's a counter
now
offer.
we restart.
So if they offered and you restart, then you're still negotiating with that person. They can't come from out of the blue and give you another one because you're technically in a negotiation. If they sent you a counter offer and you have it in writing, a counter offer in writing, correct?
Right.
So you're still negotiating with that person.
But-
That would be the
But
only
you could
exception.
be negotiating with 3 different people.
Yeah,
Right.
if a counter comes in, it's fair game again, you can
Yeah.
open up
Exactly.
negotiations with
You're
everybody.
open
Starts
to
over,
every-
just like you
yeah.
said, it starts
No, but
over.
The bottom line is until the contract is executed, until both parties have signed,
And
The contract
Okay,
is part of the paper.
I had the contract, it's
But
it's
if
signed.
both party is signed and
Then it's a contract.
it's a contract.
No,
But
but I
if
Hold on.
buyer
Yeah.
not transfer a deposit to escrow, it's
On
means
time, it's void.
It's void.
Right.
So
But you have those 5 days in which you're in
so
contract.
It means that I can send 5 offers in the all
No,
of 5 of them.
No, understand,
Yeah,
understand.
yeah,
You made an
I-
offer to me.
Yeah,
I accept it.
yeah.
Right?
But I am not sent you.
And you have 5 days, 3 days to give me the money.
Yeah.
Okay? I cannot legally be negotiating other deals because you and I are in contract.
Yeah.
Now, the moment that becomes void, if he comes to me and says, Memo, I have an offer, I'm gonna go, yes, absolutely, we'll put it as backup. Why? Because if this guy doesn't pay me within those 3 days, I will consider your offer. Now, you're gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
Because 5 days later, he offered me $1,000 more, and I'm like, bye,
Yeah.
we're in contract now.
Or even the same price. With that said, I wanna point out one thing. When you're talking to people that are not around here, or even people that are local and they wanna wire money, if they're gonna, how long does a wire take? Does anybody know how long a wire takes? An international wire takes?
Seconds.
So,
No.
24.
wrong. Do you
Wrong.
even know that if your bank even does wires? For instance,
To
do you know
get the wire,
Citibank
yes.
doesn't even do
For it to
wires?
clear, it could take up to 3 days.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, well, no, without clearing, it's not
Yeah.
there.
I know.
Yeah, if it's not there, it's not
And
there.
internationals take from up to 5 to 7 days.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, so that's a good thing. So if you say, you know, on your contract that you're gonna have that money within 3 days, what I try to do, if I have my buyer, I have that money, I only take contracts if they're in US dollars in a US bank. Because a foreign bank will hold you up, the transaction fees, if Brazil doesn't want it to bring out more than 5,000 at a time and they're supposed to give us a $10,000 and they can't get it out, your cousin can't send it or somebody else can't send it, there's always an issue with it. So if you can get your money in a US bank, US proof of funds, in US dollars, not in an account that they have to transfer or some kind of IRA or something like that, all those things take time. So these come into effect when you have your money that you're supposed to have in the bank, you know, to your client in escrow. So keep those things in mind. So when you do that contract, the first thing you want to ask your buyer is, where is that money? Where is that money and how long is it going to take us before we fill that out? Before we fill that out 3 days or 5 days. Find out where that money is, how long it's going to take you to get it here. Liquid, you know, so that's
Yeah.
very important. Also, I had a situation where we had a client closing. He uses, who is the bank on South Beach that has the coffee cafes now?
Capital
One.
One. Capital One.
Capital One. Do you know Capital One doesn't wire money? Hello, Capital One does not wire money. The client has
Really?
$40,000 in his account he's going to go wire the money, and they say, we don't do wires. They do not do wires. He had to go get the money, go to the bank, get the money, take the money to his Citibank account, and have Citibank wire the money for his closing.
Wow.
It held up his closing 2 days.
But that, I still have one thing.
I didn't know they didn't. Who would think that a bank doesn't wire money? I never even heard of that before in my life. But he had that situation. It was Vasily's client who had this situation.
If you know, if the buyers make the offer, sign the offer, the seller accept the offer, but doesn't provide the document that's in the addenda that has to be provided, the effective date is not there yet. What becomes the
I don't understand your
No,
question.
that's
okay? Go back to the page of the first page of the as-is.
No, you're saying about this, addendum is missing to some.
Addendum?
It's missing.
What
No.
addendum?
So you're confusing 2 totally different terms.
The contract is a contract. You don't have to have the addendum there
No,
on the
you're
No,
contract.
but if it's part of the last page,
Hear me
in
out,
the
you're
bottom.
confusing 2
sorry.
terms. One is the effective date only has to do with signatures. After the effective date, you have 10 days to do your due diligence
10 or
and to do your
15.
inspection.
Yeah, 10 or 15.
No, he's not talking about.
No, he's talking about the
No,
disclosure.
no.
No, he's talking about, you know, for example, for example, a lead base.
Time of
is
the
missing.
acceptance.
So he forgot to send to the.
December 11th.
Yeah, you have
Yes.
15, you have 10
Today
days.
is the
The 13th,
The
right.
13th.
Right.
On the last page of the contract, he has to provide the rider. He still didn't send the rider.
The
But he
contract?
signed the contract,
Exactly.
but
Claro que
he
sí,
didn't send the
during-
rider, he
during
sent
the
the rider.
disclosure
He said,
period.
I need information, I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Yeah, you're still under contract.
Yeah.
It's
So-
still under contract,
What
so the
does it
effective
do?
date was
The
the,
effective date, and you still have any of those addendums or
Documents
anything
and
fall
the-
under that.
it's under contract.
Yeah, You're
The
under
effective
contract.
effective date is
The
the time
addendum-
it was signed.
Exactly. The
But-
Even
addendum-
if you
But the
didn't.
rider is part of that contract.
No.
If
Even if you didn't provide the
you don't need
documents.
contract.
It's
No.
an addendum to it.
an
The
addendum
rider
to it.
is an addendum. Addendums are separate. They don't affect your effective date. They don't.
They do not affect your
No,
effective date.
you're supposed to have
Effective
your
date is only
documents
one
within 3
definition, which
days.
is when when
Yeah.
the last person.
Okay, he has
signed
3
it.
days to provide the document.
Exactly.
To be in the.
Yes.
Okay.
The
So-
effective date has nothing to do with addendums. It's when the last one of the 2 people or the 7 people in the contract, the last person signed, that's the effective date.
Remember-
Now, after the effective date, in the terms of the contract, it'll say, you have 3 days to present the documents, all the documents for the thing. You have 5 days to do the application. You have 10 days to do the inspection. But the effective date has not changed.
Yeah.
Right.
If
Effective
that
date is
person
still the
didn't
effective
provide
date.
it to you,
Okay.
if they didn't
It's
provide
the
it to
date
you.
he signed, yes.
Right,
yes.
if they did not provide it to you,
Yes.
now you have an out. You can say, I'm walking away from this
Yeah,
deal,
but
why?
even
I
if
can
there's
walk
email
out.
Of course.
where you,
But he can-
mark
That's
the
of course, the seller can
addendum,
walk out
You have
also.
to see.
But the buyer now has
What,
to
what
see.
does the inspection
Yeah.
date
Right.
get started? By the-
Of course,
But they're not
the
dated
effective
the
date,
same,
the
and they're
moment,
not
that's why the effective
part
date is
of
so
this, so
important.
they're an addendum in addition.
It's
Addendum
better
means
when
in
both
addition to
sides,
the
Okay, what
contract.
you
if
send
I
an
didn't mark,
email,
for
if
example, lead
Yeah.
your last signer,
That
yeah,
effective date
the
was-
effective
No, no,
date,
of course,
you have to
yeah,
do
yeah,
this
yeah.
day.
even if no, it's not.
Do you do an email, the effective
Yeah,
date?
you can
Time.
add an
Tell the
addendum.
effective
Every-
date is-
That's
That's
right,
why, that's how I do it.
Congratulations on your
Yeah.
executed
Yeah.
contract,
Yeah.
please
Today
see
is
the
the
important
date.
date, and I go
Yeah.
boom, 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 and I list them all. Yeah.
So you can add addendums, like I was just saying to him, up to the date of closing, if you have to extend the extension, that's an addendum, remember addendum?
Yeah, no, that,
Separate.
Also,
no,
you
but
can
that's good.
include an
Yeah, that
addendum,
has
The thing-
second buyer, like if like it was signed by only wife, you can put an addendum a husband if they would like
Hold on,
to.
what?
Yes, you can.
What?
So if like a buyer was like only a wife previously.
No, you can assign the contract.
Yeah,
If
you can
if you
make an addendum,
If you did
and
not.
if she would like to include her husband or something.
That depends,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
place in
There's
there
a place
that-
in the
no.
contract where.
That's not 100%.
Can you go to the
There's a
last
place
page?
that says that it can be
Yeah.
reassigned,
I have
no,
that
but
page.
if
You
in the
don't have-
contract it says it
I
can be
just have the
reassigned.
first page.
Yeah.
If it says no, then no, I don't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous, if you need to change something, I'm not gonna delay my closing because you wanna create.
The title company can add that person on with one of the forms the title
Yeah.
company has to add that person
At the
on,
closing.
if they wanna do it. So the reason normally they're not on here, cause they're not the one to do the loan, but they can be added in name to the title, and the title agency can add them at that time, they can add
But
them on.
before add.
But it does not postpone the
As
closing.
a second buyer to a contract, you have to sign an
If it
addendum.
says on here, if we've
Depends.
checked the part that says they
Yes,
it
can
can- it
assign
can be
or
assigned
add,
without,
Can be
right,
assigned, but without move from the
Without
contract.
limitations.
Right, but I wouldn't allow that,
Yeah.
because that might delay my
Always
closing.
put that.
No.
It never postpone the closing.
Oh, it
Never
could, it could
does.
delay, of course, what if you need to open up an LLC?
Yeah.
It-
Oh.
No, it takes 5 minutes to open.
No,
a
it does
receipt,
not.
that's the
No,
problem.
it does not.
Within
No,
one day.
no,
No, it does not.
10 of them.
It
So-
does not.
so-
It does not. And to have a signer
but-
and to create all the parts of the LLC, it can take up to weeks.
Yeah.
It does not take one day.
It-
In order for you, for the LLC to appear in Sunbiz, in order for you all that document, it takes weeks. It doesn't take one day.
I just opened one last week, it takes 2
But
days.
for a sales
Some-
contract.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right, I'm wrong. It's never happened to me.
No, but I mean-
I'm telling you, it's
Okay.
happened to me, you're wrong.
But sometimes
So,
weeks.
we're just talking about addendum, so just
Yeah.
to go on about this, the fund changes, if you have an addendum, you can create an addendum. In your case, if it does say may not assign, you cannot. If
Yeah.
it says anything else, you can. But if there's a loan involved, I can tell you it will slow down the process, because they'll ask for all the documents now for the wife.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So in most cases, if there's a
And the
loan involved.
application for the home association, I mean, it does complicate it, especially
It
when you're
can
changing to an
complicate
LLC.
it depending on the property. It can complicate it. If you have to get the Articles of Confederation from the
Thank you.
Of
LLC
incorporation.
and put those in, right, then that takes a couple of days to get those. It can slow down the process, but for the most part, if it says may not assign, then you can't. But the title company can easily do it. They add it on, they put them on title, and they're good to go.
And especially if you're doing an LLC, my advice is, let him start the LLC and transfer it to the LLC after the closing is done. It's not your problem.
But it is additional money.
It's not your problem.
We have
That's
other
not your
things
problem.
on here about inspections. Is everybody clear on inspections? Anybody have any questions about inspections? So doing your home inspections, just make sure, again, what we talked about before, sooner than later. Don't wait till the last minute when your guy's booked, when you got a big rainstorm coming or a hurricane or something coming. Get it done right away. If you do a contract, call your The same day you sign the contract, call your inspector and say, hey, when can you look at this house for me? Just call them, set it up, get it out of the way, and so there's no waiting period. So the sooner the better on certain things like that. The same thing with the condo documents. Don't send the condo documents to your client at midnight the day before they're due, that we have to have the inspection period due. So go ahead and say, hey, send them to them right away. Do everything as fast as you can to make the whole deal move quickly.
And actually tell them to send them to you so that you can review them before they
Right.
send it.
One of
Because
the,
sometimes they'll leave things blank. Sometimes, like, there's really stupid stuff, but they'll leave it blank. Oh, no, I don't want to tell them when I was born. I've had something. So, no, I'm serious. So double check it. And then the other thing that I recommend when you're doing a condo association or a homeowners association, we have a beautiful cover letter. Use it. Create a cover letter for the person who's receiving it at the association and tell them, listen, as per your request, this is here, this is here, this. You just made their job easier. Include index tabs so that they know quickly how to reach everything. That way they know that everything that they requested is done. Make copies of the checks for the thing, so you include them there. You're basically making their job easier.
remember, this is something that we do. This is our job, and we do this every day. We do this maybe 50, 100 times. We've done this hundreds of times to do this. So we're the driving force, and we are the general manager of our business. We're the CEO. We drive the train. So it's our job. Many of these people have bought 1 or 2 properties in their whole life. They don't know what they're doing. So it's our job to get everything together, to make it run smoothly, and to walk them through and hold their hand step by step. So if you want to see the application before they hand it in, so there's something on it they don't get ejected for, they put down something crazy that that they do aerobics with heavy weights at 3 o'clock in the morning, and whatever, they put something crazy in there, they're going to get kicked out, or they're going to just for any reason the application may be rejected.
It's usually something that they omit stuff that
Yeah.
they're like, oh, it's not important
They
to
don't know how old
put
the
the
roof
maker,
is.
the
They
make
need to
and
know.
the make of my car. And for the association, it is important for
Because
them
they
to
take
know
photos
the
of the
model
car.
and the make and the license plate of your car.
Right.
So to a buyer, it's like, oh, they don't care about that. It's like, no, they do,
And
and
it
they
will
will
hold the whole
delay
thing
your
up.
application, and they won't process it because it's not there. Or like, let's say for instance, like, I'll give you an example. I just had one that they asked for 3 letters of recommendation.
Personal recommendations.
3. And this person was like, oh no, I only have 1. I'll just go. And I'm like, no.
So one of the
They want
things they do
three.
with
They
that-
want 3, and if they want 3, you're
And
gonna
they'll
get
accept one from an agent. He's
Yeah.
been my client for 8 years. I've known these people. He has a
Yeah.
great job. He drives a nice car. He always pays his bills. He always shows up on time. He's a good friend of mine. I've known him for 8 years. He's a good personal, this and that. Just, you can write a letter of recommendation if you need one for your client, to kind of
And if
boost
you
it
think
up.
that applications don't get held
Yeah.
because of that, they do get held.
Call the person too, call the people that, if you do have to get the reference letter, just call them
Yeah.
and say, hey, expect a reference letter from this property management company, they're gonna be calling you. So you just so the heads up on, you don't wanna surprise
Good idea.
people that don't know they're gonna get a phone call. Same thing with a former landlord, a former person they have to contact, just kind of smooth it over.
And the bottom
allow
line
you
is
to
make
work
the
for
job
them.
easier, because usually it's not the CAM. Everyone thinks it's the CAM that reviews this or the association. Usually it's some lowly assistant that gets something plopped on her desk and she hates it and it's messy and it's got a coffee stain. When they get mine's in a plastic binder, it has everything with subdivisions, I thank them with like a little thing, I put my business card all over it, it's stapled outside. Because what I just do, I just made her job easier. So who is she gonna help out? Yours, or she's gonna help me out first. And when I call her, she goes, oh, hi, Mamo, because she's already seen my card 3 different times. It's just little tiny details that make her life
It's a
easier.
good idea just to help with all those things. Like I said, make sure that they've done the application if they have to do one, check in on it. Call the association, is there anything missing from this? First Service Residential is one of the largest community property managers in Florida. They're out of Orlando. They manage a bunch of our buildings here, a lot of them. So they have a phone number, an 800 number you can call, and whenever I have clients that need to be approved, we're getting ready for a move-in, we're getting ready for a closing, I say, hey, is there anything missing from this? They'll just look at it, the application's done online, they'll say, yeah, they forgot to send the picture of their dog, they forgot to do this, they forgot to that, or we're still waiting on this one item. We need a W-2 from them, they sent 3, but we needed 4. Or, whatever purpose, we needed 3 paychecks.
That's another
The
really good
paychecks.
idea. That's another
Yeah.
really good idea that I do.
Call them.
I scan everything that I'm sending and I upload it into the cloud, because it has happened to me. It happened to me, the one in Plantation, where I sent the copy of the driver's license of the 2 buyers, and they said, oh, we don't have a copy of the driver's license. Like, oh, not a problem. Let me send you the link. And I sent them everything I had sent them. They had obviously taken it out for some reason, making a phone copy, and they didn't put it back in. So even though I had done my job, they hadn't done it. and you just wanna make sure you cover your
Yeah,
butt.
so just follow up on stuff like the application, follow up to make sure with the loan officer, like he said, not only did you check to make sure they're qualified, how's it going? Are we on time? This is our closing date, how are we doing?
And I'm
Is there already
available, and if
missing
you
it?
need something, and if that person doesn't answer you, call me. You know, like, I tell the bankers like that, I tell them, listen, if the agent doesn't call you, call me. If the client doesn't call you, call me. I'll do the work for you. And sometimes it comes down to that. It comes down to just having a good relationship.
So the last thing before you do your closing, the last thing is the walkthrough. So you do the walkthrough of the property. If you're here, you're doing it for your client, or your client's doing it with you. Make sure if you did an inspection and there were things to be fixed, make sure those things have been fixed. If they're not fixed, still you got the closing tomorrow. Hopefully you do this the day before the closing. I don't like to do it the same day. Something might need to be fixed, or there might be something wrong. So make sure that also you request the escrow funds like we were talking about to be transferred if they have to be transferred from London Foster for that. The walkthrough, you do the walkthrough, make sure that you have copies of the keys, make sure you have a copy of the mailbox key if they have a mailbox key, make sure you have all the appropriate keys that the agent's ready to hand over to you or you're ready to hand over to them. Make sure if you have a commission check that you have to take to somebody to a closing or to a walkthrough, make sure you've requested that 2 days before your walkthrough, 2 days before your closing. The title company will do that after
Right.
the closing for the sale, but if it's a rental, then you request it beforehand so you can hand it to them.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
We request a commission 2 days before the closing,
Mhm.
and we request transfer money from escrow to title company 4 days before. How it can be possible? You request 4 days before.
No, it's 2 days, that's wrong.
Yeah.
You should say 2.
2 days.
Because we
We're
request,
building in 4 days, but because
transfer
we want to
money
make sure.
and after commission.
If your closing is on a Monday, I request it, by Wednesday to get it by Friday, so you take it on Monday. That's just me, but
The way that it
early.
works internally, so you guys understand this, because I didn't get this until much later, but the way that it works internally is when you make an escrow deposit, if you don't request an escrow letter, the person in accounting doesn't know what that deposit goes to. Okay? So when you make the escrow letter, that's why you should always make an escrow deposit and immediately do an escrow letter, because then it makes it easier for the person in accounting to say, oh, $20,000 got deposited. Oh, I just got a letter requesting $20,000 escrow. Easy, I'll match them up. Now, if you wait a week, which you should never do, but if you do, now they gotta go through all their stuff. That's one. The commission request, it makes sense to do it 2 days before with a preliminary HUD, because if anything is wrong, if they find something wrong with the money, or with the commission, or with the contract, if anything is wrong, it's better to find out 2 days before than to find out the day of the closing.
Right.
Because usually, especially some of these crazy agents call and they go, oh, but I did it 3 days ago. I'm like, you can't lie. They lie to me. They tell me like, Memo, I'm freaking out. Oh my God, where's my check?
There's
Where's
a
my
paper
money?"
trail.
And then I go to forward me the I never got confirmation. I go, then you didn't do it. Oh no, I have one. And then when you look at the confirmation, it'll say Monday, 9:22 a.m., which was 25 minutes ago. You're not gonna get the wire. You're not gonna get it.
So,
On our paperwork, we have 2 walkthrough forms. So we have this one and we have one that's a little more detailed. So these are on our back office under walkthrough forms on londonfoster.net. So all of our forms are there. So just make sure when you do that, you make sure that if there, again, was anything needed to be repaired in the house or the condo, that it was repaired properly. So you check that off. So usually that's done the day before. Has everybody in here done walkthroughs before?
What if not?
What?
What if not? It's not done.
Then you call and you say, hey, we might need to delay this closing because these things weren't done. If you didn't do them, this is how much it's gonna cost, and maybe we get a credit for those things, or we want it done. So I personally like to get the money and fix it myself. I always take pictures, honestly, because if I rely on them to fix it, you don't know if they just band-aided it or they did a good job.
So if they have to change the closing statement, the HUD,
Extension.
next 3 more days?
Extension, it's on the seller, so it is what it is. I mean, it depends on, if they didn't fix the paint scrapes, it depends on what it is. If they're supposed to replace an air conditioner, $4,000 air conditioner, that's a big deal. So again, it depends, and everything can be, probably negotiated either through money or getting it fixed. Maybe the guy was supposed to fix it, they thought it was fixed and it just wasn't done. But if you hadn't done your walkthrough, and if you didn't go to turn that AC on and knew it wasn't working or knew it wasn't replaced, plus your inspector took photos of it all, and when you go back to do your walkthrough, you have your list of things that you were supposed to be fixed, and you're taking photos of those things that were repaired. If they needed to do the roof, if they needed to do a fence, if they needed to put an air conditioner, a
A
refrigerator
walkthrough
replaced.
is really like a last chance opportunity to make sure that everything was fine.
Yeah.
If you have a problem property, like what
Mhm.
Nanette is talking about, where the AC was broken, where all the windows were busted, where you probably don't wanna leave it until 2 days before the closing.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna say to them, listen, when is this fixed? Can we go
Mhm.
in and re-inspect it, make sure that
Mhm.
everything was fixed? Because you wanna start writing that stuff off.
And you want receipts from licensed people who did that work. If I'm the buyer, and I'm asking for an AC to be put in, and if a permit had to be pulled, and if you had to do all that stuff, I cover all my bases on my stuff, because if it's in Miami Shores and it's a house, and it's something to be fixed down there, everything has to pull a permit to do everything they do down there, and you have to
But
get a
Miami Beach also.
Do you know what a reoccupancy certificate is too? So North Miami, you gotta have a reoccupancy certificate when you sell a property. They have to come out and inspect it before you go in.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Mhm.
and if they don't like that somebody put in a toilet and the cutoff valve for the toilet is this far from the floor because you put in new tile, boom,
Who
you
does
have to
that?
take your bathroom
Who,
out,
who
North
does that
Miami.
reinspection?
Huh?
The city.
The city, the
So you have to
permitting.
call, you have to call the city if
Yes,
a
they
repair's
do.
been
The
made before
occupancy.
you can,
Mm-hmm,
You have to have
Yeah.
a permit, first of all. You
Yeah.
have to have a permit, so part of the permit process is that they check it along the way.
so if
they'll
you,
say to
if the seller wants to replace a toilet, they need to pull a permit and then have somebody.
depends, if they
It
need a
depends, it
plumbing
depends.
permit, it
Yeah, if
depends.
they're changing the plumbing, if you're changing the toilet, no. But like, let's say like, okay, the perfect example is what she's just saying.
In a
You
condo.
didn't rip up the tile, right? Instead of ripping up the tile, you put tile over tile. Well,
Right.
guess what? Now the ring doesn't fit. So what they did was they do like a little extension. That's not legal.
And.
So what'll happen is that they'll come to inspect the AC, and the guy will walk around the whole apartment and go, you're getting penalized for this.
Mhm.
Now you have to rip up all the floor, put up, this happens a lot.
In
And so you
North
just wanna be
Miami, in
careful.
condos in North Miami, I'll tell you for
Cause
instance.
they're all old, right?
Yeah, and a lot of them have been redone and stuff, and a lot of these inspectors know these buildings. On 135th Street, you guys, there's tons of those buildings all down 135th Street are all apartments. And if you call to get a reoccupancy, and they say, oh, you guys had something done, sink faucet put in, on this property, they bring up a folio number, they put it in their system to do the reoccupancy. They had to check the plumbing, and they had to check the electrical, and a guy comes around, he does an appointment, usually takes 5 minutes if everything is okay. But like he said, so one guy comes, he shows up, he looks, he goes, there is a food disposal, not allowed. Need to remove that food disposal in this apartment, in this building, they won't allow. So that was there, food disposal. He goes, it's hooked up here, it's gotta go. Inspector said that. He goes in to the toilet, he checks all the water to make sure the water's on, and he sees the cutoff valve for the water is too close to the ground, and the toilet has to be, by code, a certain number of inches from the tub, and the cutoff valve has to be like 4 inches from the floor. It was 2 inches, because they put in the tile in the grout and raised it up.
Happens a lot.
Had to tear off
Happens
the
a lot here,
bathroom floor.
and the reason,
I mean-
there's a
It's
good,
cost, people cut corners.
but there's a good and a bad of it, because the bad was that
Mhm.
from the 80s until now,
Mhm.
or up until 10, 15 years ago, especially during the 80s, where people in Miami, there was a lot of these pied-à-terres, where people lived in New York, and so what they did was they hired the handyman
Mhm.
to redo the
Mhm.
kitchen. And so the handyman would, change the pipe, whatever, and then something happened. The
Yeah.
pipe explodes.
It was a flood.
And then when
They
they go
weren't
back into the
licensed.
property, they go, what happened? Oh, well, no, I didn't have a license. Oh, no, my handyman
Yeah.
did it. And so it's a way of protecting, and the way I explain to my clients at least, it's like, listen, you're safeguarding yourself, that at least you know that in your building, they're hard against people doing those kind of bad repairs, because at the end of the day, you're liable. Yeah, you have insurance.
Even.
If
But
you-
who
if-
takes, who, like, let's say a rug that I love, or photos that I love, if they got damaged, there's no insurance that covers that.
Mhm.
So you wanna make sure you live in a quality building where at least the HOA is strict and they're on it,
And you don't have a flood that floods 17 floors below you.
And it doesn't
you
mean
could-
what happened.
Exactly. So the other thing too, going back to the inspection, find out whatever building you're in, whatever property you have, whatever property you're buying, who are the authorities, what has to happen there. The people that can tell you mostly what happens is the people in the property management office. Usually they can tell you, and the inspector that inspects that property, he can say, okay, North Miami, you have to do this, Miami Shores, you have to do this, on the beach, you have to do this. Usually if you haven't sold properties in that area, another agent also, maybe in our office, on our WhatsApp group, you can say, hey, what kind of inspections am I gonna need when I move into this apartment? Do you need the reoccupancy? They do in North Miami in that area. In Miami Shores, they do need that. So certain areas require things. If it's in, the city of Miami or the county of Dade, it has to do with the building department, they're separate. So it varies depending on where the property is on what your rules are, so you need to check that out. So, anybody have questions about how to get your commission, which is the reason we got to here is we all want commission, we sold the property. Go online to our back office, obviously, everybody knows where it says,
Success
commission.
column.
Exactly, so you go
My
there.
deals,
My deals, so scoop down under my deals.
fourth option is request a commission.
Right, request commissions. So commissions, remember what commissions are? Not escrow, right? So we have two different things. We have escrow. Escrow is before you close. Commissions are only after you close. You can't ever get a commission before you
If you
close.
think of there's two squares in that presentation. Think of a dotted line in between them. The dotted line is your walkthrough. Any money you collect before the walkthrough goes into escrow. Any money you collect at the walkthrough or after goes into commission for both sale and rental.
So if I have only one deposit, does this go to escrow?
If it's before the walkthrough, goes into escrow.
Yeah. So
If it's after?
if I have just only one deposit before
Mhm.
closing,
Mhm.
it was just one deposit that goes to escrow.
Was it
Is
before the walkthrough?
Yes.
It goes into escrow.
Yes,
Mhm.
it's right now on escrow in London Foster.
Correct.
I don't have any deposit on a commission account. So can I request a commission before closing or no?
Yes, 2 days before your walkthrough.
So it means I request a commission first, and after I request a transfer of escrow to title agency.
No, you don't request a transfer.
I
That's what I'm saying. 2
You
days
don't have
before, it's automatic.
Other
That's the reason why you do it.
Okay.
2 days before your walkthrough,
Uh-huh.
okay, you're going to request a commission request.
Okay.
You're gonna say, I have $50,000 in escrow.
Mhm.
My commission is $24,000. I charged my buyer $395. So my total commission is $24,395. 2 days before my walkthrough, I'm gonna go into LondonFoster.net under my deals, commission request. I'm gonna fill out the form, and then I'm gonna say, please hold $24,395 of the $50,000 to pay me. The rest, please send it to Title Now.
And the other
Okay.
commission for the other agent, the title
Is
company
not my
will pay out.
problem.
Right, the title company will pay them out, so you don't have to worry about
It's
that.
not my problem.
Yeah.
You only are concerned, and this is a
About-
benefit,
yeah,
this is a good thing.
Yeah, about
Because
that.
normally, the way other agents in the world are doing it, is that they have to send the money to the title company.
Mhm.
And then the title company cuts a check, so then you have to go to the closing, then you have to pick up that check, and then you have to go deposit it into London Foster.
Okay.
It takes 5 days for it to clear. After it clears, then London Foster cuts you a check, and then it takes 5 days for you to clear. Which means 10 days after the closing, I still don't have my money.
Oh, okay.
Versus if it's an escrow, I
In the
have it
first way means like closing
Immediately.
date,
immediately. Yep.
So, everybody knows as far as closing, moving forward to the closing, we used to get a HUD, it's no longer a HUD, it's called a TILA. So this should be sent to you, and your client 3 days before. Florida law is 3 days before. I can't even tell you the number of times I get it the day before.
There you go.
Yeah, the day of, and it happens a lot with title companies, so you just wanna back up and say, hey, we were supposed to get this 3 days before to review it. So, if the client does not understand it, it's basically a spreadsheet, which is, everybody's probably seen one, but I'll just go over it quickly. So it's a spreadsheet, it has what the borrower has and the seller. So if it's not a borrower, it's the buyer, so if it's a cash deal, obviously, it's buyer and seller. So it just puts everything down there, it says what kind of loan it is, and you wanna make sure, I don't know what's going on with that, you wanna make sure to review this with your client, or review it and make sure there's no mistakes. Commonly we find mistakes on these things, and sometimes it can be the spelling of a name. So make sure everybody's names of your owners, make sure the LLC, make sure their right names are on the statement, because this is the most important document that we have basically at the closing. So you wanna make sure that they have everything in here. I don't know why I was doing that, but
And
anyway.
guys, when it comes to the Alta or whatever you wanna call it, it
TILA,
is
Alta.
in your best interest for you to see it before it goes out. I have had two situations. That's the reason why I work at London Foster. One of them was that there was $100,000 in escrow, okay, and the title company sent out the preliminary HUD in an email, not blind carbon copy, to everyone involved. The buyer, 2 of them, the seller, 2 of them, the attorneys, 2 of them, the mortgage, 2 of them, the closing coordinator, and the underwriter. They sent it with $100,000 missing in the escrow. Can you imagine how many emails were going back
Yeah,
and forth?
of course.
By the time I saw it, because I was in a meeting, by the time that's the reason why I quit the other firm that I was at. By the time I got to the emails were, fuck you. I'm not fucking selling you this property.
Oh my.
You miserable piece of shit.
It got nasty.
That is,
And this is
that's how
at
bad,
closing.
that's how bad it got, and
bad.
it was simply a clerical error on an $800,000 house that the title company forgot to put in what was in escrow. Okay, so my advice to you, as I was saying, is 3 days before the closing, what you should do is call the title company, and go, hey, listen, do you have a preliminary HUD? Can you send me one so I can review it and make sure everything's fine, just as a double check?
All title companies don't work the same too, so if you use one and then you've used another one, so all title companies are not the same. The all title agents in the title companies don't work the same either. So again, will be your best friend if you just stay in contact with that person. Hey, I'm Nanette, I'm the buyer's agent, I'm the seller's agent, blah, 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 blah. How we doing? Do you need anything? You missing anything? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And always get copied on every single document they send to your client. Whether you have the buyer or the seller, I have them to copy me on stuff because a lot of times my buyers are either illiterate or
They
they're
don't understand
95
it.
years
They don't
old
get it.
or something. They don't understand it. They just think, well, it's a legal document. They know what they're doing. I'll sign it. Yeah, or they go along with it. So remember, we're their general manager. We're their person that's watching
Yeah,
over
for
them.
example, I recently haven't find in a preliminary HUD $595 of London Foster administration fee.
Well, that's your transaction. That's what you charge.
Yes, it should be in the HUD, correct?
Right.
Yeah, because I found like a seller agent fee, but our fee I haven't found.
Then they took it out of your commission.
Yeah,
If it's not
I
there, if
was
you
it in
didn't
the
put it on there,
contract?
they took it out of your.
Yes, it's automatically pop up in the contract.
Okay. So then they might have done the HUD incorrectly.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's the reason
Guys,
you want to
guys,
check.
it's-
Just be careful.
Yeah.
I'll give you a perfect example. And I love Title Now.
Yeah.
I love Title Now, okay? We had a cash buy, okay? We had a cash buy and we had a remote closing. Remote, which means that they send someone here and they send someone here.
Yeah.
And they added 2 FedEx fees of $75. One for the seller and one for the buyer. And so I said, what the fuck are you doing that? Like, we're sending a remote closer, there's no FedEx fee. Ah, Memo, I'm sorry. It was $75 on both sides. It wasn't a big deal. But I caught it, they eliminated it, they fixed it, and then it got sent to everybody. Somebody would have caught it. And it looks much worse to catch a silly fee of $75 afterwards. So that's what I'm saying. That's absolutely right. You want to be the liaisons. You want to be the person that the HOA person loves, that the person at the title company loves, that the mortgage person loves. So just cover yourself because you're the one to eliminate those
It also
obstacles.
sends a message that you're watching and you're watching everything they're doing too. So basically they know that you're gonna be checking everything. So check it. Contract price, make sure I said the names are correct. Make sure your clients know if they're going to the closing or not, but just make sure the contract sales price is right because remember that's how our money is calculated. So we have that. Personal property, we talked about that already. The taxes will be prorated to the date of closing. Everybody knows that. So whatever the taxes are, if there's any assessments. Deposit money, this is what Memo was talking about. Make sure that any deposit monies, the first, the second deposit, whatever, are calculated. If they had a loan, that's calculated. So remember, this is from it says borrower, but it's the buyer and the seller. So, and it should just work like, it should come down to the ends where it just adds up and I think we only have 1 page of that, sorry. So it basically comes out, there's 2 pages of this, so we only have the first page that's here, but there's 2 pages of it and it just adds up and it has on the second page, it has what your fee is. If you're getting 3 and they're getting 2.5, make sure you check your numbers to make sure, because sometimes that gets a little tricky. Any other questions about the HUD?
The closing belongs to the buyer or seller? I forgot.
I think it's, Memo's closing is buyer or seller. I don't know.
I'm sorry?
I can't remember. I think it's a
The
buyer.
closing belongs to the seller or the buyer?
Seller?
The date of the closing belongs
That's a
to
Bobby
the
question. He
seller.
always gets that seller.
It's the
I
seller,
believe.
no?
Correct.
Yeah.
To the
The seller, yeah. Because remember, you're not moving in supposedly until the next day. So if you're
It's not
closing.
the day of the closing?
The day of the the day of the closing, you're just assuming that you're not gonna walk out of the closing and go move in. That whole day belongs to the seller, for instance, for the maintenance. Okay, you're not paying, you're not,
No, no, no,
you're
that's
not
the-
paying maintenance until two
It's
PM.
the seller, it's the
Yeah.
seller.
So
You don't pay maintenance until 2 PM, you pay maintenance until the
Yeah,
end of the day.
until the end of the day.
Tomorrow, you
Ah,
get
that's
electric
right.
bill, you're not
No, all
changing the
these is the
electricity,
seller.
especially in Florida, you're not changing the electricity 2 days before the closing, no. The day after the closing, out of good faith, then the seller will change the electric bill. Because you cannot leave an apartment in Florida with 80-90% of humidity a day without your AC.
Well, you
There'll
need
be
it
both.
on too for your
Yeah.
walkthrough.
You need it for your
It has to
walkthrough,
be
yeah.
on for the
So it
walkthrough.
belongs to the seller. The seller should be
Yeah.
paying the maintenance until the end of the day.
Yeah.
They should be paying the taxes until the end of the
Yeah.
day. They should be
Yeah.
paying, that's the way I think of it.
Yeah.
And also the AC until the end of the day, you know?
and
Yeah.
please,
What could be the next day?
belong,
A couple of
to
days more.
seller, at the day of the closing, like at least
I'm sorry, the lease?
yeah, money received from a tenant belongs to a seller at the end.
Until the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah.
Because until the next day, you're not really collecting, you don't become like a landlord.
Okay.
Like people don't live in fragments of hours. Imagine it would be like, your tenant was there for 2 hours and 16 minutes under my watch. No, you can't do that. So just by logic.
But the lease starts on the first, they move on the first.
No,
and
agreed.
the-
But I'm saying when you're assuming a lease.
Ah,
If
yeah.
I'm a seller and I have her as a tenant
You're
and he's the
inheriting.
buyer, you know, I'm
Ah,
not
yeah.
I'm not gonna return him the 4 hours that I would.
Yeah.
Any questions, anybody, about any of the stuff we went over, or any other questions dealing with the
We
contracts?
covered pretty much.
Yeah.
So
Thank
you,
Fan-
Nanette.
Fantastic.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.